I sat in my truck for 3 full minutes and did not move. Engine off, hands on the wheel, staring at a gate that was already sliding open like it had been watching me pull up. The house behind it did not look like a place where people lived. It looked like a place where people performed living. Glass, stone, perfect hedges, security cameras on every corner. And something in my chest that I could not name was already telling me to put the truck in reverse and drive away. I did not listen to it. I never do. The morning had started the way every morning started. Alarm at 5:45, breakfast for my daughter Lily, who was 7 years old and incapable of finding her left shoe even when it was directly in front of her. Drop her at school. Check the dispatch app. The first job on the list had a small red flag next to the address. Priority client. My supervisor had called me personally the night before and said 3 things. Be professional, be fast, do not ask questions. I had worked for him for 6 years. I had never heard him say, do not ask questions before. I grabbed my toolbox and walked to the front door. Before my hand reached it, the door opened from the inside. The woman standing there was put together in a way that looked expensive and exhausting at the same time. Dark blazer, hair pulled back, clean, not a single thing out of place. But her eyes were doing something her face was not. Her eyes were scared. Not the kind of scared that comes from a flickering light, the kind that comes from something much bigger that has been going on for much longer. She was not waiting for an electrician. She was waiting for someone she could trust. Her name was Mara. She said it fast, like she was used to introductions being transactional. One handshake, no small talk, turn and walk. I followed her through a house that felt like it was holding its breath. The blinds were pulled down just enough to make the street blurry. A housekeeper appeared at the end of a hallway, looked at me for half a second, and then disappeared through a door that made no sound when it closed. The whole place felt like a stage set. Everything in the right position, nothing actually relaxed. She brought me to the garage and pointed at a light fixture near the back wall. Flickering for 3 days, she said, driving her crazy. I set up my ladder and got to work. The problem was simple. Loose wire connection, bad from the original install. The kind of thing that looks scary and fixes in 4 minutes. But somewhere in those 4 minutes, I noticed something she had not pointed out. There was a second camera. Small, matte black, tucked behind the light housing in a way that you would only see if you were already up there with your face close to the ceiling. It was not angled at the garage door the way a normal security camera would be. It was angled straight down, at the floor below, at wherever a person would stand. I finished the repair. I climbed down. I said nothing about what I had seen. She was already holding the check when I turned around. When I reached for it, she leaned forward just slightly, close enough that she did not have to raise her voice above a murmur. "Do not react," she said. "Someone is watching us right now." I kept my face completely still. I nodded like she had just told me the square footage of the garage. But my heart was going about twice its normal speed. She called the next morning and said the bracket on the fixture needed to be checked. I knew that was not why she was calling. I came back anyway. This time she walked me past the main rooms, down a narrow hallway, and into a small study at the back of the house. I checked the walls without making it obvious. No cameras. Plain paint, one window facing the garden, a desk with a locked drawer, 2 chairs that had actually been sat in. It was the only room in the entire house that felt real. She closed the door. She stood with her back against it for a second. Then she looked at me and said, "I did not call you back about the bracket." "I know," I said. She sat down, and then she told me everything. Her business partner had been running money through her company for 2 years. Clean money going in, dirty money coming out. Her name on the paperwork, Her signature on accounts she had never looked at closely enough. She had found it 3 months ago by accident. A file that had been routed to the wrong inbox. A number that did not add up. A thread she pulled without knowing what was attached to the other end. What she found had kept her from sleeping a full night since. He was powerful. He was connected, and almost everyone around her had been placed there by him. Her assistant, her legal team, the head of her private security. She had built a life that looked like success and woken up one day to realize it was a cage someone else had designed. She could not go to the police because she did not know how far his reach went. She could not run because disappearing would tell him she knew something. So she stayed. She smiled through meetings. She answered emails. She showed up to dinners and said the right things to the right people. And every night she came home and copied documents onto an encrypted drive she kept inside a hollowed-out book on the shelf behind me. 3 months, she said quietly. Not one person she could tell. I did not say anything for a moment. Then I asked her why me. She looked at me straight. Because you saw that camera, she said, and you did not say a word. You just climbed down and kept your face clean. That told me everything I needed to know. I told her the truth. I said it simply because she deserved that. I have a daughter, I said. She is 7. My whole life is built around keeping her safe and keeping the lights on. I am an electrician. I fix things and I go home. I do not know who this man is or what he is capable of, and I am not the right person for whatever this is. She listened without interrupting. When I stopped talking, she nodded once and said, I understand. Thank you for coming back at all. That was it. No argument, no ask. She just folded her hands on the desk and looked at me with the kind of quiet that belongs to someone who has stopped expecting people to stay. And that was the thing I could not walk away from. I had prepared myself for a fight. I had not prepared myself for someone who accepted being left behind like it was just the next normal thing on a long list of normal disappointments. I stood up. I walked to the door. I put my hand on the frame, and I thought about Lily. Not in some big dramatic way, just specifically. I thought about what I would want someone to do if she were ever alone somewhere, and frightened, and surrounded by people she could not trust, and had no one to hand the truth to. I thought about what it would mean for one person to simply turn around. I turned around. I did not say, I will save you. I did not say, I will fix this. I walked back to the chair, sat down, and said the only honest thing I had. Tell me what you need. She looked at me for a long moment. Something moved across her face that was older than relief. Like a door she had stopped opening had come open on its own. She reached into the locked drawer and put the drive on the table between us. We spent the next 2 hours going through everything. Financial records, internal emails, transaction logs with names and dates written in her small, careful handwriting. I did not understand all of it, and I told her that honestly. But I asked questions. I listened. I helped her figure out who in her circle she had actually chosen herself, where the one thin line of solid ground might still exist. At some point, the room had gone dark around us, and neither of us had reached for the light switch. Our hands were resting on the table a few inches apart. Neither of us moved them closer. Neither of us moved them away. Some things do not need to be said to be completely understood. The sun was already up by the time I pulled through her gate. I drove with the heater on low, and my mind somewhere it had no right to be. I picked Lily up from my mother's house at 7:30. She came running out with mismatched socks and a piece of toast in her hand, already talking about a dream she'd had involving a purple horse and a school made entirely of trampolines. I buckled her in, handed her the juice box, let her voice fill up the car the way it always did. It almost worked. I kept thinking about Mara sitting in that house right now, performing calm, smiling at the right moments, moving through a life that had become a costume. I thought about the name on those documents and 3 months of carrying it with nobody to set it down with. My phone buzzed on the console. Unknown number. 2 words. Thank you. I stared at it longer than I should have. Lily was deep into the trampoline school story. I picked up the phone and typed back 3 words. Don't thank me yet. I set it down, finished my coffee, kept driving. I did not know how any of this ended. I did not know what it would cost, or how deep it went, or whether either of us would come through it without damage. Those were real questions, and I was not going to pretend otherwise. But I knew one thing that sat low and quiet and certain in my gut. I had driven away from that house, and I was already thinking about going back. Not for the job, not for the danger, not for any of the reasons a smarter man might have told himself. Because of the way she looked at me when I turned around in that doorway. Like she had built her entire life around not needing anyone. And somewhere underneath all of it, quiet and protected and almost forgotten, she had never actually stopped hoping that someone would show up anyway.